Hi, this is Andrew, and welcome to another KeyForge deck reveal. Today I'm going to be going over Everlasting V Galvadirt, which is another deck that I haven't managed to use in a tournament setting yet. But I've played it online a bit, played it with friends, it's fun. So this one is Untamed, Logos, and Dis. So kind of some nice, out of Logos I expect to have my own options expanded. Dis I expect to be ruining my opponent's options. And Untamed I hope to ramp pretty quickly. And we'll see how it does on those things. Quick note for for my 15 or whatever it is subscribers right now, which hopefully you can tell your friends. But if people are watching a bunch of these videos and you're like, hey, you started doing those videos going through cards, if you liked those, I'll try to get more of those up soon. I really am excited to work my way all the way through them so that I can get to the spoilers. And I've avoided doing those until I finish working through all the currently out cards. But anyway, so hopefully get more of those up soon. But I have a real job and kids and stuff, so it's all priorities. Anyway, so here's Everlasting V Galvadirt, and we will start in on the discards. So this card has 2 copies of Arise, and we'll see that I think how good Arise is depends on how strong my creature set is, and is especially good if we have a good disc creature set. So we'll see. Tendrils of Pain. There's 2 copies of this as well. We gain an amber when we play it, and deal direct damage up to 4 if my opponent just forged. So situationally dependent, but 1 is often good. Anyway, and deals it to everybody. So just something to be aware of. And sometimes doing that right before an Arise can be good if I'm going to be able to pop my creatures back out. Pandemonium. So it's possible actually to get a great combo out of Pandemonium and Tendrils. If you have a couple disc creatures in your hand, you can do like Tendrils of Pain to make sure the whole board is damaged, and then play your creatures that don't have damage, and then do Pandemonium, and then you get a couple captures, but your opponent doesn't get any. Something to think about. Anyway, yeah. So Pandemonium gains you 1, and then after it gains you 1, each undamaged creature, including your opponent's, captures 1 amber from its opponent. Annihilation Ritual, double-edged sword here. This is, this is probably the number one reason why I haven't brought this deck to a tournament. I'm not a huge fan of Annihilation Ritual, but it gives you an amber when you play it, and then it makes destroyed things actually get purged, which is scary. Life Word, 1 amber, and then it has Omni. You sacrifice it so your opponent can't play creatures. And now we're into the disc creatures. So Shuffles is a really nice one if you can manage to keep it out. It causes your opponent to lose 1 at the end of your turn, and importantly, this includes the turn that you play it on. So nice way to control your opponent's amber if you can keep it out, or at least drop them for 1. Schuler, 5 power, and when you play it, if your opponent has 4 or more, steal 1. That's great. Succubus, your opponent's hand size is reduced by 1 essentially. That's really nice if you can keep it out. And then Tentacus, your opponent must pay you 1 in order to use an artifact. That's situational, but can be good. And then the Terror, if your opponent has none, you gain 2. I feel like this is a lot better with if you have like Charette or something, but because there's nothing in this set of cards to immediately drop your opponent down to where the Terror can take effect. So unless your opponent just forged or something like that, you're unlikely to get a lot of use out of that. But that's okay. The Shuffles and the Succubus are really good. The Schuler's good. Tentacus can be good. So you might get in a situation where it makes a lot of sense to Arise for those. There are definitely, I think, stronger sets of creatures to Arise for, but it's not bad. Okay, on to Logos, and we have Lab Work, gain an amber and archive a card. Library access, the fabled library access, which for the remainder of the turn you draw a card every time you play a card. Sloppy lab work, amber, archive a card, discard a card. I think this is better than lab work in most situations because it lets you discard out of faction and cycle your deck faster. So pretty happy to have it. If you happen to have like 5 Logos cards and one of them is this, and you don't want to discard that last card, you'd rather archive it, then just play your other 4 Logos cards before this one, and when you play Sloppy Lab Work, you archive a card. At that point, you won't have any cards in your hand, and so you can't discard a card. So that's possibly a thing to do. Next, we have Twin Bolt Emission, Amber, deal 2 damage to a creature and 2 damage to a different creature. Library of Babel, artifact that lets you draw a card. We have 2 of those. Bat Drone, 2 power, skirmish, and when it fights, it steals. We're into the Logos creatures now, and this is really, again, if you can keep this out, it's nice. It's so hard to keep out. Doc Bookton, a little easier to keep out, and she's great when she reaps, she draws a card. It's easier to keep out because she's 5 power. Dr. Escotera, nicer late game than early, but when you put Dr. Escotera on the board, you gain 1 amber for each forged key your opponent has. And then we have Ganymede Archivist, who lets you archive a card when you reap. So that's 3 reap effects here, which is pretty good. I like those types of effects. And Novu Archaeologist, which lets you archive a card from your discard pile. Although I get less excited about that. I would be more excited if it was a reap effect. It still could be a strong action, but only if there was a particular card that you really thought would be extremely valuable. And so far, I don't think maybe a Rise, but really I don't think there are a lot of cards in here that are that high value. So as a single card, some of them can work well together, but they're not single value, single card really high value. So I'd probably just end up reaping with it. And then Titan Mechanic, when it's on a flank, your keys cost, well, everybody's keys cost 1 less. Okay, and then lastly, we get into Untamed, and we'll start with Full Moon, which is great if you can drop it at the beginning of the turn where you're going to play a bunch of creatures. You gain 1 each time you play a creature. Nocturnal Maneuver, one of my favorite Untamed cards, gains you an amber, and you exhaust up to 3 creatures. Up to is important because it means if your opponent only has 2 creatures, you don't have to exhaust 1 of your own. Vigor, heal up to 3 damage from a creature. If you healed 3 damage, gain 1. That can be nice, especially on a turn after you played, where is it? After you played Tendrils of Pain. Next turn, maybe you followed up with a Vigor. Even on an opponent's card, that's 2 amber, so it could be nice. Ritual of the Hunt is an artifact. Gains you an amber when you play it, and then it has Omni. You sacrifice it, and you can use your friendly untamed creatures for the rest of the turn. That can be good. It'll depend. We'll have to see our creature set. And here we are in our creature set. Chota Hazri. So, importantly, playing Ritual Hunt won't let you play creatures. So, like, you can't use this and then sacrifice it and then play Chota Hazri. It just lets you use them. So, the only way in this deck that we're going to be able to play Chota Hazri is on an Untamed turn. But sometimes good at the end of a full moon run. Do Fairy, which is great reap, 2 power and elusive. If it can stay on the board, get a lot of amber that way. Dust Pixie gets you 2 amber. Weak little thing, but gets you 2 amber. Snufflegator, 4 power and skirmish, nice for plinking your enemies. Niffle Ape, 3 power, and it ignores taunt and elusive when it fights. That can be good. And then Hunting Witch. So if you happen to have this out, this and Full Moon out on the same turn, then you're dropping creatures for lots of amber. That can lead to a good Chota Hazri setup. But also, hard to keep on the board, only 2 power. And then Witch of the Eye, 3 power, and when she reaps, she returns a card from her discard pile to your hand. This with Nocturnal Maneuvers can be really strong. This with Full Moon can be really strong depending on the situation. With Hunting Witch can be nice. A lot of good targets. Yeah, good decent targets for this. And this is this is strictly better, not strictly better, but I think in this deck this is better than the Novu Archaeologist, right? Novu Archaeologist spends an action to put a card into your archives, and that means you will have it available in the future. So with a card that you would want to not use now but set up for later, it's really great. I think really all the cards in this deck, with the exception maybe of Arise, are ones you just want to play right away. And so I feel like the archive factor there isn't as strong. Witch of the Eye, on the other hand, gets it from your discard pile to your hand, which, if it's an Untamed card, which means you can play it right away. With Novu Archaeologist, anything but a Logos card, you're better off just putting it in your archives anyway. But anyway, I think in this particular deck, Witch of the Eye is significantly better than Novu Archaeologist. Oh, and I didn't even mention she's Reaping, so you get the Amber as well. And then lastly, we have Way of the Wolf, which gives something skirmish. So I would say overall, this deck has decent Amber generation. In fact, let me, I can pull up the SAS rating here. And show you, but this deck has decent Amber generation. It's not completely amazing, but it's pretty good. The biggest problem I have with it is that it just doesn't have much in the way of like creatures that will stay on the board, and it has a bunch of creatures that are great if they can stay on the board, and then no way to actually keep them on the board. So I feel like that leaves it pretty open to being hurt. Now, maybe I'm just, doing this wrong. But if you look here at, there we go. If we look here on, this is decks of KeyForge.com. And they have these rating systems they use. So, it does have good Amber generation. That's 80 is a pretty high ranking on SAS, but I feel like this deck, it has some things that really want to do good work, but then it doesn't necessarily have the things to let them stay out and do the work, if that makes sense. We have a Shaffles, we have a Succubus that really want to be out there doing stuff and hurting the opponent turn after turn, but there's no taunt, there's no Shadow Self, and there's no even big creatures to help keep the board clean. There's a couple, but really just not a lot of big creatures to help keep the board clean. So I would say, this deck, in terms of decks that I've used, I would say it's about middle of the pack. I guess this has a little high, but I would say it's about middle of the pack, where it does pretty well, but if your opponent has some things that let them pretty easily deal with those small creatures and get them out of the way, then it's just not going to be able to keep up. So anyway, that's my experience. And I can't. How do I get out of this? Oh well, we'll figure it out. But thanks for watching this video. Like I said, I'll try to get some more card review videos up soon, and then work our way through so we can eventually get to the spoilers, which would just be super fun. And later on I'll try to do a session later tonight maybe where I actually do some playthroughs with this deck and see how it does or doesn't do against other decks. So thanks for watching, and keep forging.